For most Americans, Canada feels familiar on the surface. The cities look modern, the people speak English, and the culture seems close enough to home. But the moment they start paying attention, everything begins to feel different. Not in a dramatic way, but in subtle, almost invisible details. The stranger at the grocery store who starts a friendly conversation without wanting anything. The quietness of the streets, even during busy hours. The way everyone moves with an ease that Americans can't quite understand. It's in the tone of people's voices, the relaxed pace of daily life, and the small habits that make Canada feel almost like another version of North America. One that runs on calmness instead of chaos. And that's when Americans start to realize the real surprises aren't the mountains, the cold, or the maple syrup. The real surprises are the everyday behaviors Canadians don't even think about, but Americans find completely unbelievable. The politeness hits Americans almost immediately. It's not an exaggeration or a stereotype. Canadians are genuinely, consistently, shockingly polite. They apologize when you bump into them. They say thank you to bus drivers, baristas, cashiers, and even strangers who hold the door from 20 feet away. They smile in situations where an American would roll their eyes. And the strangest part is how natural it all feels to them. There's no forced tone, no sarcasm, no awkwardness. It's simply part of the culture. To Americans who are used to quick communication, direct confrontation, and often defensive reactions, the level of politeness can feel almost surreal. It's not weakness. It's not fear. It's a quiet cultural rule. Keep the peace, make others comfortable, and treat people kindly even when you don't have to. And that constant politeness becomes one of the strangest and most comforting things Americans experience in Canada. One of the strangest shocks for Americans is the silence. Even in the middle of Toronto or Vancouver, two of the biggest cities in North America, there's a calmness you don't feel in U.S. cities. People speak softly, traffic feels organized, and public spaces aren't filled with shouting, honking, or random confrontations. Public transportation is the biggest surprise. Americans expect loud conversations, arguments, noise, and energy. Instead, they find people sitting quietly, respecting each other's space, scrolling on their phones without drawing attention, and speaking in low voices if they talk at all. It's almost eerie at first, like someone turned the volume down on an entire country. But after a while, it becomes strangely peaceful. The absence of aggression, the lack of tension, and the overall quietness leave Americans wondering how a place can feel so alive and yet so calm at the same time. It's not that Canadians are shy, it's that they collectively choose peace over noise. Something Americans often find hard to believe. Nothing prepares Americans for how Canadians treat winter as if it's just another background detail in their day. To an American, winter is something you prepare for, worry about, sometimes even fear. But in Canada, winter is almost a personality, an entire lifestyle that shapes the way people think, work, dress, and survive. You see it when the temperature drops far below anything most Americans have ever experienced, yet life continues without hesitation. People plug their cars into block heaters so the engines don't freeze, as casually as plugging in a phone charger. Children walk to school through snow that almost reaches their knees, bundled in layers, but still laughing. Entire families go grocery shopping during snowstorms that would shut down entire American states. And perhaps the most unbelievable part, Canadians actually enjoy it. They celebrate winter. There are outdoor skating rinks glowing with warm lights, winter festivals packed with families, ice sculptures rising in city squares, and people drinking hot chocolate outside while snow falls around them. Americans stare in disbelief as they see joggers running in temperatures far below zero, cyclists still biking through icy streets, and neighbors shoveling their driveways at 6 a.m., as if it's the most normal part of their routine. What Americans consider extreme, Canadians consider ordinary. They own specialized boots, heated jackets, and gloves designed for survival, and they know exactly how to walk on ice without falling. Even the way Canadians talk about winter surprises Americans, casually, with humor, almost with pride. It's not just weather, it's a shared challenge, a unifying force, a piece of identity. And that mindset is what shocks Americans the most. Winter in Canada isn't an emergency, it's a way of life. And the confidence, resilience, and calmness Canadians show during those brutal months is something Americans simply cannot believe until they see it for themselves. Another thing that completely throws Americans off is Canada's tipping culture. Not because Canadians don't tip, they do, but because the entire attitude around tipping feels different. In the United States, tipping is almost a form of social pressure, a silent test where every interaction has an expected percentage attached to it, and anything below that number can spark judgment or embarrassment. But in Canada, tipping is polite, not stressful. When Americans visit for the first time, they're confused at how relaxed everyone is about it. Servers thank you sincerely, even for a small tip. Cashiers and baristas don't glare if you skip the tip screen. Delivery drivers don't expect you to leave half the bill as gratitude, and that calmness feels strange. There's no competition, no tension, no bragging about who tips more. Canadians treat tipping as appreciation, not obligation. Even the overall money culture feels different. Canadians don't spend loudly, they spend responsibly. They aren't obsessed with showing wealth or proving success. Instead, they talk openly about budgeting, saving, and avoiding debt, which shocks many Americans who come from a culture where money conversations are often emotional or uncomfortable. And when Americans realize that tipping isn't a high-pressure game here, it changes their whole dining experience. In Canada, the goal isn't to impress someone with a massive tip, it's simply to be respectful and fair. And for Americans who grew up navigating a system built on guilt and expectation, this calm and uncomplicated relationship with tipping feels genuinely strange and surprisingly refreshing. One of the most unbelievable things Americans notice in Canada is the level of trust people have in one another. In many U.S. cities, leaving a laptop on a cafe table while you step away is unthinkable. But in Canada, people do it without a second thought. You'll see bikes sitting outside shops without heavy locks, strollers left unattended while parents grab something quickly inside, and lost wallets or phones returned with all the money still inside. It feels unreal to Americans who grew up watching their belongings closely and avoiding leaving anything unattended. But in Canada, there's an unspoken cultural code. You respect people's property, and you don't take what isn't yours. Even strangers help each other without hesitation. Holding doors, offering directions, helping someone carry groceries, or stepping in when someone slips on the ice. And this isn't treated like charity, it's treated like normal behavior. It's the reason Canadians don't think twice about leaving packages outside, trusting neighbors with spare keys, or expecting honesty from the people around them. The trust flows into public institutions as well. People believe the police will show up when needed, that public transit is safe, and that communities will look out for one another. To an American where distrust and alertness are daily habits, this level of societal confidence feels almost unimaginable. And that's what makes it one of the strangest, yet most beautiful differences Americans experience in Canada. The longer Americans spend in Canada, the more they begin to understand that none of these strange things are random quirks or cute stereotypes. They are the building blocks of a society that moves differently, slower, calmer, and with a kind of gentle stability that feels rare in today's world. What Americans first interpreted as unusual quickly becomes something they admire. And as they adjust, they feel themselves changing too. They stop expecting confrontation. They stop assuming the worst in strangers. They walk through cities without carrying that invisible tension in their shoulders. They breathe easier. They pay attention to the small things. How people thank bus drivers, how neighbors help each other shovel snow, how strangers hold doors without thinking twice, how arguments end with kindness instead of hostility. And that's when it hits them. Canada's strangeness isn't really strangeness at all. It's the result of a culture built on trust, courtesy, and collective responsibility. It's the proof that societies don't have to run on conflict or noise to function. And once Americans experience that kind of environment, even for a little while, it becomes a quiet shock, realizing how much stress they carried back home, how normal tension felt, and how rare genuine calmness actually is. Canada reshapes the way they see community, respect, and humanity. And that transformation becomes one of the strangest and most beautiful surprises of all. Canada doesn't try to impress people with flashy traditions or loud expressions of culture. It impresses them quietly, through small habits that say everything about who Canadians are and how they choose to live. And for Americans, those habits reveal something powerful about what a peaceful, respectful society can look like. But this raises the bigger question. If these small behaviors make such a huge difference in daily life, what other hidden habits shape the way Canadians live compared to Americans? In the next global encounter, we'll go even deeper into the cultural differences that most people never notice but always feel. Make sure to subscribe, because the next video will change the way you see everyday life in North America.